Hey everybody, this is Melissa Esquibel, producer of SawbuckSeminars.com. Today I want to talk to you about how to become a valuable member of your technology team there at your organization. I think admins use technology tools more broadly and more deeply than most information workers in their companies, but they're not often seen as somebody to invite to the table when it comes to making these decisions around rolling out new technology. So today I want to talk to you about how I think you can become that valuable team member, how to get an invite to the table again and again so that you're helping your organization make the best decisions when it comes to technology, both what to choose and how to implement it, and maybe when not to choose to implement something. So I know you've been here. Hey, Angela, there's something new and we're going to implement it, tomorrow. And we'd just like for you to be up on it so that you can be the expert the very next day. Yeah, I get that. So why do we feel that way? Well, in general, the admin professions, we like things organized. We like them predictable and flowing smoothly. There's enough crazy stuff that happens in our lives. We just like for things to go smoothly. So we don't necessarily like things to change that radically. We don't like changing things unless there's a really, really, really good reason for it. I mean, if there's a good reason, if we're going to get functionality that we've needed, or if it's going to close a security gap, or if it's going to, allow us to maintain support, if things are getting old and they're no longer in support. If there's a good reason for it, we can get behind it. But even then, we're not crazy about the idea of changing something. That's not typically who we are. And new things, well, they're inherently risky. Sometimes they don't work. At the very least, they're often initially not a whole lot better. So, let's not change anything ever, because that would work. Okay, you get my point. Change happens. And the more we are out here in the wonderful world of technology, the more we realize things are changing more rapidly. So what I would like to suggest to you is that you become a solutions analyst. Now, you're already a solutions analyst. You're already given so many problems to deal with and not a lot of clues with how to solve the problem that you're supposed to solve. And you're already a solutions analyst. But when people come to us and they say, we're going to change our expense reporting, you're like, hey, wait a minute. So your reaction tends to be no. No, unless you can guarantee me that I won't have any issues with the way my folks are submitting receipts, as long as, you can tell me everything's going to be exactly the same and I don't have to change anything other than what button to press maybe on day one, then no, unless you can guarantee me that, no. So we tend to be a no unless kind of solutions analyst. And I think what I'm suggesting is I would like for you to become more of a yes if. Yes, that sounds great. If we can ensure that it is just as easy tomorrow to submit receipts as it is today. So more of a yes if. Now I know this may seem like a subtle difference, but it's important. A solutions analyst can look at these two things and decide which one is appropriate for the situation at hand. So what the heck are these things? Well, actually, they're the same thing. They're both sextants. They're both used to navigate crafts. On the left is a sextant for an Apollo spacecraft. On the right is a sextant for an older ship. They both do the same job. They're both there to improve navigation ability, but clearly they work in two completely different environments. So we want to say yes if it fits what we're doing. Part of being seen as somebody that gets invited to the table, again, is being seen as somebody that is going to participate in a positive way. So we change our language. So how does this improve, with a big smile on our face, how does this improve what we're doing now? So yes, that looks shiny, new, and wonderful. How does it improve what we're doing now? So it's cool, it's great, it's amazing, wow. And then follow this with some very direct questions. Now, I know it may seem like we'd still rather be no unless, but if you'll take this shift in how you approach this, I guarantee you, you will be seen as somebody that needs to get invited to the table. Yes, that looks great. So, how does it integrate into our current environment? Now, the person who is bringing you this latest, greatest thing, if they're from IT, they may already know that this integrates, but what you're asking is, how does it integrate into the environment? If the person bringing you this change isn't anywhere near IT, just the new young hotshot on the team who likes to use a particular platform and says, "Hey, this is the best thing since sliced bread. We should start using this immediately." And again, great, wow, cool, wonderful. How does that integrate into our environment? So in the second case, you're actually throwing a question out that that person may never have thought of. In the first case, when you're talking to IT, you're asking, how does that integrate? In other words, explain to me how. The second person probably never even thought about, will this even fit? So how does it integrate into our environment? Here's what I mean specifically. Does it fit within the platform ecosystem? Is it G Suite or Office 365 compatible? That's very important. There are some things that are happening now out here in the wonderful world of cloud computing that will lean one way or the other. For example, Salesforce has chosen G Suite to be its preferred platform. So if your organization is heavily invested in Salesforce, maybe if you're using G Suite, it's the right decision. If you're in Office 365, it will integrate, but is it better for the other one? In other words, ask these questions. How does it integrate to what you're already using? Does it work on your primary productivity platform? Does it work on all the devices that you use? I've been in many organizations where the entire organization is PC, except for one senior executive who will not use anything but Mac. And if this thing you're bringing in is great on a PC and not so hot on a Mac, a lot of times I see this with Microsoft Outlook. Outlook is fabulous on a PC, not so much on a Mac, even the desktop version. It's different. It's missing a little bit of functionality, maybe not the functionality that matters, but you're the one that's going to know that because you work with these people all the time. So you know what devices people are using and who are your special cases with their devices. If you're all iPhone and you have a handful of Androids, well, the thing that we're choosing, if it's meant to be mobile, integrated onto mobile, does it work with that? You're the one that's going to know. You're the one that can ask these questions. Does it integrate with the same tools that the old thing does? So if you want to bring in a new thing and you're using Salesforce or SharePoint or Dropbox, does it also work with those the same way the previous thing does? So these are important questions. Does it integrate with the same tools in the old way? Does it work with the ecosystem? Does it work on all your devices? Now, again, if you're talking to IT, I would say the chances are better than not that they've at least considered this, but they may not know about the special cases. You will. And so you could say, hey, I don't know if you know, but Darlene uses a Mac. That's all she uses. Or Bob uses an Android phone and that's all he'll use. Will this work that way? The person who's bringing it in who is not an IT probably has never even considered that anybody uses anything other than what they carry around. So you're the one that knows, you're the one that can ask these questions in a meaningful, productive, helpful way. So sometimes, for example, I like to use Trello with my social media person, and we keep track of our social media campaigns in Trello. Now, I'm really over here on the Microsoft Office side, as you know, and I tend to stay in my little ecosystem, really. But when she adds a new card to Trello, I actually get a notification that she's done that in Outlook. And that was done using something called Microsoft Flow. Well, that happens to be a part of Office 365. But if you have to use a third-party system, let's say, for example, to integrate this new thing, there's a cost involved in that. So these are important questions to ask. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so let's take $100,000 a year as a salary and divide that by 2,080 hours. That's $48.08 an hour. Let's divide that by 60 to get about 80 cents per minute. Let's say they save 20 minutes times 52 weeks is $833. Let's say, there's 10 people that are going to save that amount. That's $8,000 a year. Well, that's awesome. As long as the cost of the thing that you need to integrate this new thing in the environment isn't more than that. Otherwise, it's kind of a break even, isn't it? So that's the kind of thing I'm, kind of trying to express to you. Okay, so let's talk about what internal controls might be affected by this new thing being brought in. That's a good question to ask, and a question that some folks may not think to ask first. What internal controls might be affected? One of the great places to look for that answer is the service level agreement. If your organization has to be HIPAA or FINRA or FTC or SEC compliant, the service level agreement will likely tell you whether that app or that software either is or can be made compliant. And that's a really important distinction. So you might buy Office 365, or you might buy G Suite or subscribe to these things under the understanding that they are HIPAA compliant or FINRA compliant. The thing is they can be implemented to be compliant, but there are admin choices that have to be made and implementation choices that have to be made. It is in the service level agreement that you will see that, or the terms that you'll see that. What warranties does the service provider offer? What is the uptime assurance? How long are they saying this is going to be up? Are they 98% uptime, 99% uptime? What are they warrantying? And what is downtime? How does downtime impact your organization? So if their service level agreement says, we're going to guarantee you 90% uptime, be prepared for the 10% downtime, know how that can impact your organization and what you're going to do about it. Now, I don't say you personally have to know about it, but these are the questions maybe somebody else isn't asking, and you're the person that's going to have to live with the fallout. So if you know to ask that, you become the solutions analyst that people want to talk to. Does the new thing introduce an exposure that wasn't there before? So if you've been maintaining everything inside your little technology platform ecosystem bubble, and you've done that because it's a controlled environment, does going outside that bubble to something new introduce an exposure? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it actually closes an exposure. But here's a question to ask. These are important questions. And if you're the one asking them, they're going to look at you and say, well, hey, maybe this person needs to be at the table every time we make these kinds of decisions. So to go find a service level agreement is really quite easy. You go look at the thing that you're thinking about implementing, let's say Monday.com, and you can see right there in the search terms, you find the service level agreement or terms of service, and it will show you the fine print. Now, most of us look at this and say, well, I'm not reading that, but this is where the answers are. And you don't have to be an attorney. You just need to actually read the thing and look for this information and bring it back to the people that need to be able to answer these questions for you, going, hey, did we think about this? And finally, one of the biggest obstacles to something being rolled out successfully is the learning curve. I have been to so many organizations where they roll out a whole new productivity suite and figure that, well, it's similar enough to this other thing, so we shouldn't have to train anybody, right? Well, you end up being the de facto trainer and troubleshooter and help desk and everything else. So this is a good question to ask. What is the learning curve? What assumptions? So if you're talking to IT, what assumptions is IT making about the learning curve that is maybe having them reduce the training budget or eliminate a training budget? And you're the one that knows, and says the people that are going to be a little bit more difficult to bring along and will need hands-on training. Maybe some people can get away with just some job aids or tip sheets, but maybe you have people that need to sit behind a computer with the new thing and an instructor in front of the room. So you are the person who knows the personalities. You've got a unique view on the organization. So what is the learning curve? What is it going to take for people to come into this new platform or use this new app or start submitting things electronically versus on paper? You're the one who knows who are going to be the people that will be the difficult cases and who is going to be an early adopter and maybe somebody to bring on and help you test the new thing, so you know who these people are. All right, so whether or not you got a seat at the table, eventually we're going to do the thing. So the thing's getting implemented. Help people understand why. Even if you're not necessarily 100% behind this change, help people understand why it was made. And if you don't know yourself, ask the questions. Get the answer to the question, especially if you were not involved out front. To go to the folks that are rolling this out, who are driving this forward and saying, you know, I'm going to be the one that people are going to call. And so help me understand the why so that when I'm asked, I can give an appropriate answer. So help people understand that why. Support the change. Whether or not you're 100% behind it, support it, because it doesn't help for you to say, well, this wasn't my idea, I think this was dumb. It doesn't help moving this onto the organization. If it's a train and it's moving along the tracks and it's picking up speed, it doesn't do any good to pretend that's not happening. So support the change. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. I want to help make this a smooth transition. And again, another way for you to get back to the people who perhaps didn't involve you first is to say, look, I want to support this. Help me by letting me know what I can say and how I can help ease this into the organization so you can become a part of the solution. Pull, don't push. So when you're telling people about the change, you know, it's not, hey, here's the deal, this is what's going on, and just deal with it. We're changing. This is what it is. You got to change tomorrow. One of the best things I've ever heard was, it's a fallacy that people don't like change. People love change. People change things all the time. They rearrange their furniture. They change their style of clothing. They change the color of their hair. They change lots of things. They do not like to be changed. So when you are saying, hey, you have to change, the immediate reaction is to push back. But if you invite them into the change by, oh, I don't know, solving a problem. Hey, George, you know that thing that you're always struggling with in expense reporting? Well, this new system that we're putting in solves that problem. Let me show you how. And at that point, George is on board because you've solved a problem for him. You don't have to push him into the change. He will want to be a part of getting that change implemented because you've solved problems for him. So you want to pull and not push the change at people. Invite them into the change. Invite them to like the change, so to speak. Promote best practices. One of the more common things we see out there is when something new is implemented, people try to use the new thing the same way they use the old thing. And a lot of times that's not the best way to use it. So what you need to help them do is you need to model the best practices so they see how it's done. And then you can show them what the best practice is and why doing it this new way is better than doing it the old way. And if it's not, you need to let the people know that it's not. You know, this now takes 10 steps. It used to take 5. So help me tell them why this is so much better that they need to do extra steps. If nothing else, it will let the people know that you're the one that understands this and to invite you to the table the next time or to keep you involved in the process if they did get you involved. And now that you are part of the team, you can ask for training because you're the one who's going to be out front of this thing and helping people understand why it was done and supporting the change and all this other stuff. You can say, hey, I can do a better job, but I need to go to class, or show me where training videos exist, or let me work alongside somebody so I can understand how this thing works, so that I can be better at being the person out front for the organization when this change is implemented. Probably one of the most important things you can do, because you're supporting the decision makers, is keep them informed. If they've signed off on this change, they need to know whether it was the right thing. How did it perform relative to how they thought it was going to perform? So, track errors. Are we making more mistakes? Are we making less mistakes? Are we having more duplication, less duplication? And track it over time. You know, we started out and it was a lot worse when we first implemented it, and duplications were worse than they were before, but I noticed that after 3 weeks, they've all but disappeared. That's good information. Yeah, the implementation was rocky and it introduced problems maybe we didn't think about, but now that everyone's on board, this actually is working better. You can track that and you can report it. Record calls that you get for help. And I don't mean record them like, record the voice record, but, get a single sheet of paper and put a tick mark every time somebody calls you to ask for help on how to work with this new system or new application. And then to the extent you can, doesn't have to be scientifically accurate, but how much time did you spend? Because that also has a cost. Remember that calculation we just did on $100,000? Well, your salary needs to be included there. Take your salary and divide it by 2080 and divide it by 60 times the number of minutes you're spending on these calls. And then those people's productivity, that's real money, real numbers. So how much has it actually costed us to implement this? And would it have been more cost effective to have training? So record that information and keep the decision makers informed. Enlist the squeaky wheel. When you're trying to give feedback, when someone says, "How's it going?" Well, I was working with Paula the other day, and Paula doesn't like change, and she was really picking this up really quick. Or, you know how Paula is, she really doesn't like change, and she's really not crazy about this because it's taking her twice as long to do what she used to do. And here's what we're doing about that. So use this information to bring back to them and help them understand whether it's going well. And most importantly, if you were told, hey, we're doing this because it's going to be bigger, better, faster, it's going to help us control things better, record those. Be in the meeting, take the minutes, take the notes. These were the promises. Document those promises, and best to document them out front. So if I understand correctly, what you're telling me is implementing this is going to improve our productivity, and it's going to be easier. It's going to be a step saver and will be less confusing than what we're doing today. Awesome. Now we're 6-8 weeks after implementation. Did it do that? And keep the decision makers informed. How did we do? So get a seat at the technology rollout table. Get a seat as a technology influencer by being seen as that solutions analyst, by asking the important questions, knowing the people part of the equation and being able to express that, not just accepting that change can only happen to you, but with you, and even perhaps because of you. Get a seat at the table by supporting the implementation of new tools, not being the naysayer, not being the Debbie Downer when the decision is finally made to roll something out. Be the person that supports it and models best practices. And keep the decision makers informed. You support them. Keep them informed. Let them know whether the decisions were made well. Let them know the results of their decisions. Let them know the impact of their decisions and how it went in the organization. I'm so glad you were able to join us today. I hope that you can see yourself in this role as a solutions analyst, can understand that if you can do that, you'll be seen as a valuable member of the team and get a seat at the table. Thank you for joining us on Adminchat today. Everybody have a great day.